In today's video, I'm going to talk about my journey from basically finishing school to how I ended up as a used car dealer with a business that employs 15 people and turns over in excess of 12 million euro per year. A lot of people wonder, how do you get to this point, or where the starting journey is, or where you went from working for someone else to going out on my own. I've covered this topic on a good few TikToks before over the years, but people mightn't have seen them, and I haven't put it in YouTube format yet. So in this video, I'm going to go through everything and talk about my journey. So I finished school in 2006, which I know is a long time ago now, it's like 19 years ago. I'm 36 years of age now. I took a year out after finishing school and I worked in a factory. I was only just gone 17 doing my leaving cert, and I worked in a factory, a pharmaceutical factory in Ballymacarbery in Waterford, and I worked there in the packaging department for just over a year. I was always planning on going to college. I had deferred the place doing business and French in University of Limerick. I just wanted to be 18 before I went to college, so I worked for a year. And that working year was an absolutely brilliant formation year for me in life in general. One, it was great to get a bit of money. I got myself a car and everything like that, and had a bit of money saved going up to college, but it also made me realise what I didn't want to do in life. I didn't want to work in a factory. I didn't want to be just working in a job where you're just praying for your Christmas holidays, or you're praying for your 2 weeks of factory shutdown. I kind of wanted a bit more than that. It just wasn't for me. I saw people that were there 20, 25 years and they didn't seem that happy, and that just wasn't for me. So anyway, I went to college when I was 18 and did business and marketing, really enjoyed that. But it was a business and French degree. I eventually just moved into kind of a business and marketing degree. Finished college then, and in 2011, and I went off to America on the piss. There wasn't many actual jobs around after finishing college at the time in 2011. So I went off to America for an extended long holiday, J1, and then a bit after that. And I came back then and there was no real jobs. I was on the dole for a couple of months and eventually took up a job bridge scheme at the start of 2012. So this is like the dole plus 50 euro per week, which is a thing that was all the rage back in just after the recession. And I got a job with Field Master, they were called at the time. They're now Office Master in Waterford, as a kind of a marketing internship. So I did that for a good few months, and then I kind of got into a sales role from the marketing role. I was told by a few other people at the time that there was more money in sales than there was in marketing, and they kind of heard me inside in the office and they said, "Jesus, you're okay on the phone, you might be good in sales." So I eventually migrated into a sales role from there. Around this time as well, I was in my early 20s at the time, and I used to enjoy drinking a lot. I wouldn't consider, I always did well in school, but I was never like, an A student, for want of a better word. But I always had in the back of my head, and my mother will testify to this, that I always knew that I'd do really well and I'd be really successful and I wanted to make a load of money. But I didn't even know what that meant yet, or I didn't even know how I was going to do that. I just had it in the back of my head when I was 21, 22. I was like, right, by the time I'm 30, I want to be making over 100 grand a year, or I want to be doing this, or I want to have my own business. I always said 30 as a benchmark for me working by myself, and I actually did start working for myself by the time I was 30. But I started then in car sales over 12 years ago. And the reason I got into it was just because I liked sales and that was quite enjoyable. But I was selling office products and reams of paper and printers and all that. And I just thought selling cars would be more interesting. So I applied for a job with the Auto Bowling Group. And I eventually got offered the job. I actually turned down the job at the start because I wasn't being offered a company car to start, and the basic salary in car sales is quite low, so it didn't sound too appealing. But credit to Anthony Boland, he met me again and we arranged something. I got a car to start and all that kind of thing. And it's mad that I actually turned down that at the start, and I always look back on it and it's like, what would have my life have been if I didn't accept that job in car sales all those years ago? Because it was only really when I got into car sales that I kind of found what I was good at and what I enjoyed doing. So yeah, that was the start of it. Now, when I started in car sales as well, it was only kind of the tail end of the recession. It was kind of still a bit recession. You're kind of looking at 2013 kind of times into 2014. And, things were okay again. Things were starting to pick up. But in my first year in car sales, I thought I was going to be going to be making millions. I think I made like maybe 33 grand or something like that, which again was more than my previous job, and I was delighted with it. But I wasn't going to become a millionaire or anything like that. And also at the time, I remember back in, I'd say probably 2014, I remember thinking that I should be doing better than this. I was a Dacia and Renault salesman, and after doing 4 years in college, I kind of had I had a kind of a feeling in my head that I should have a fancier sounding job. A lot of my friends that I was in college with had big fancy sounding jobs with, EY or KPMG or Coca-Cola or whatever in Dublin, and I was a Renault and Dacia salesman. And admittedly, I know it was silly, but I was like almost a little embarrassed to tell people what I was doing. And especially the first year when I made a grand amount of money, but I didn't make huge money or anything like that. I think it was in 2014 or probably 2015 then, I think I made 50 grand. I think I'm going to say 2014 or 15, I'm not sure what year. And then I was like, and at the time that was more than a lot of my say college friends and everything like that. So then I started getting really excited about it. And then the next year I made a bit more again, and the next year I made a little bit more again. And then I started really enjoying it then. And I started kind of thinking, you know what? It doesn't have to be a fancy sounding job. At the end of the day, it's like if you have a good job that you enjoy that's paying you good money, that's what it's all about. So leave your ego at the door and listen, if I'm doing well, I'll happily be a Renault and Dacia salesman. So I was there in H&H, the Renault garage in Waterford, until 2017, and I was doing quite well. I was one of the top salesmen in the entire Boland group for I think 2 years in a row. I was definitely in the top 3 anyway. I was selling over 300 cars a year at peak, we'll say. I had my own customer base, I was doing really well. And as they do in a lot of groups, they kind of sometimes switch salesmen around to go in different garages for a variety of reasons. They'll swap one person here and bring another guy here or whatever, normal. And I was switched to Audi Waterford and in summer 2017, and I'm being brutally honest, and there was nothing against any of the lads working there and that, but I actually hated working there. And the reason being is I just really preferred selling things like Renaults, Dacias and Peugeots and all run-of-the-mill non-high-end cars. I liked the volume, I liked things like quick sales. I didn't want to be dealing with someone for 3 months on a new Audi A4. And the way the commission structure was set up, let's say at the time, it was based on volume, your kind of commission. So I was actually down money going to a garage selling more premium cars. So that it didn't really seem to stack up for me. So I had a real turning point in the summer of 2017, and I was considering my options. I was 28 years of age at the time. I was single, no kids, and I was kind of thinking, what am I doing with my life? So I actually made a decision then that I was going to move to Dubai, selling property and real estate. So I had a job lined up, and I'll actually, if I can find it, I'll show the email here. For Espas Real Estate, they're still going, a huge property company over in Dubai. I talked to a guy on LinkedIn who was working over there, an Irish guy, and he put me in contact with someone there. So I had everything all sorted, visa nearly sorted and everything like that. Everything other than the flight I think I'd booked. That was around August 2017. Then I was a week away from handing in my notice into Boland's, and I got offered a manager's job for a new garage that they had opening in Cork. So it was a sales manager's job in Hertz Car Sales. They were opening a garage in Cork, and they felt because I was good at volume sales that I might be a good fit, and I had a good few years experience at the time then as well. So I was caught in my head, and I really didn't know what to do. So the way I looked at it, okay, I'd probably get another, if I just tried this for 4 months, the manager job in Cork, and if I didn't like it, I'd probably get another job in selling, property over in Dubai, because it was commission only, so how hard can it be to get a job? So I made the decision then to take the job in Cork. Now, if I didn't get offered that job in Cork, I was left and I was gone to Dubai in 2017, and I could still be over there, or things could have gone so different, or Paul O'Connor cars wouldn't have existed at all. So it's mad the way things, and I was only a week away from it as well. So it's crazy. So I got offered a job in Cork. I really enjoyed that. I loved Cork. I loved the job. It wasn't without its problems now as well, because we were just a sales standalone garage, let's say, in Cork. So we'd no service department, we'd no kind of after sales. So me as sales manager had to look after a lot of the after sales. We had to look after the finance. We had to do everything in the business. So it was a challenging role. But I loved being in Cork. I loved the city. I loved the job. So I really enjoyed my time down there. I was down there in total for nearly 2 years. In 2018, after being in Cork, maybe for around a year or so, I kind of had a feeling I was doing really well now. My money at the time, because I'm always very transparent, was touching off 6 figures at the time. So everyone around me was like, Jesus, this lad is flying. And I was doing really well, and I was happy there. And they were so good to me over the years. But I just had it in the back of my head that I'd more in me. And at the time, let's say I was 29, and I had it since I was 21. I was saying I was going to be working for myself by the time I'm 30. And I said, I can give this a go. I was also looking around at other managers in other garages that were in their 40s and 50s, and they were in similar roles for 10 or 20 years. And I felt like I didn't want that to be me, because one, I thought a lot of them seemed miserable, and they seemed kind of indoctrinated into a system. And I also felt as well that I'd almost reached as far as I could go working for someone else by the time I was 29. So I was like, I didn't want to be doing this for the next 20, 30 years. It just wasn't for me. I was always thinking in the back of my head when I was working at 17 inside in the factory, and you see people that are just praying for their holidays or praying for their Christmas, and they're just there 20, 30 years going through the same thing over and over again. It's fine for some people. It just wasn't for me. So I felt I could go out on my own and do my own car sales business. I was planning it for years in the back of my head. I always thought I'd do it, so I had a good bit of money saved. So I started looking at places to buy. A few people asked me in the comments and wondered, was I kind of buying and selling and wheeling and dealing on the side? Like I probably sold a handful of cars, off the record, let's say, because you couldn't be, obviously telling your employer that you're doing it. But like, again, I'm talking about 2 or 3 maybe over the years, cars I would have just bought from other traders and things like that. More for the interest of it than anything else, than the money. So I wasn't really a guy that was selling a load of cars at the weekend. I was working for someone else. I knew how car sales worked inside out, but I wasn't, that well versed in buying and selling cars myself outside of that. So that was certainly a learning curve when I went out on my own. I was always then trying to see where I'd open my own business, and I am from Ballymacarbery, which is kind of between Clonmel and Dungarvan. So I was looking at a few different options. I was familiar with living in Waterford City because I was living there for while I was with Boldens and everything like that. I always wanted to be somewhere close to where I was from, and the reason for that, like I was in Cork for 2 years, and you're always an outsider in Cork. Like people hear an accent that isn't Cork, and they'll be like, where are you from? You're not from Cork. And I think when you're opening a business, it's really important and it's really beneficial if people can kind of put 2 and 2 together and know who you are, where you're from, and if you're kind of, some bit local. And I think that really helps. So Clonmel, I felt, which I would have known people from going to school there. There was a lot of garages in Clonmel. Waterford then, I didn't want to go somewhere right where my previous employer was, because they had a load of garages there, and plus there was a load of garages there too. Dungarvan was massively underutilised, I believe. And it nearly still is, I'd argue. There's definitely more lads selling cars here now than there was in 2019. But I picked Dungarvan. My dad is from here. I had to have some family here, and it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. So I started looking at premises, and I started looking at, it was such a, looking back on it is mad. Like, you're trying to find units, and you're kind of a new business, and you're trying to get estate agents to think that you'd be a good tenant and all that, because there's a lot more to it than you think. It's not a case of, I'll take that one, sign a lease. You have to kind of be interviewed almost for it. But I looked at a few different places, and credit to Eamon Spratt, who have still a fantastic relationship here as well. He was super accommodating, super nice to me, getting this unit here for my sales garage, and I'm massively thankful for that. And he put in a good word to the landlord and everything like that, so I got the place sorted. Also, while I was planning on opening my garage, which I did in April 2019, I left. I was also opening a new garage. I only opened the new garage for the Hertz car sales group out in Blarney. So in 2018, what I was doing, I was planning my own business at the weekends and the evenings. And I was also opening a new garage in Blarney for Hertz car sales as well. So I was trying to do all that, all the while trying to make money, trying to make commission, trying to open up a new garage. But the reason why I wanted to open up the new garage for my previous employer, because it would give me a good experience as well from when I'm doing it on my own. And I think I did a great job to it, and I'm proud to say that I certainly didn't take the foot off the gas from my previous employer, and I think I got up the new garage up to a really good point before I left, which I think was very important. So I'll tell you one thing, it was a very, very busy year or so. And then after that, once I did leave, I had my first year in business, which was hectic as well. So then I was open. I could talk for hours about this, but I'll try to keep it as brief as possible. I started off and I had probably around 15 cars here. It was just literally myself here. My dad was working in his old job at the time. He was coming in every day after he finished work at 3:30. So I was here on my own during the day. I had maybe 15 cars here. I had about 110,000 euros starting out, of which half of it I borrowed from the bank. And I just started buying and selling cars from there. In the first month, I remember I made about 12,000 euro from profit from the selling cars. And I'd take my overheads out of that, but I made 12 or 13,000 euro, and that was nearly the richest I ever felt, because I couldn't believe a business that I had started myself had actually generated its own money. At the time, my overheads were probably around 4 or 5 grand a month. So in the first month, in my head, I was after making 6 or 7 grand, and I was like, this is the best. It was the best feeling in the world. And the second month then, I made just over 30 grand, and my overheads were still only 37 grand. So that's how well it started. And I know that sounds like a lot. It's like, geez, you were making big money from the start, but all you have to do for the first couple of years, I had 80,000 euro, let's say, for stock at starting up. That you won't sustainably run a business like that. You have to keep all the money in the business to build up your stock. You know, at any given time now, I could have €1.5 million worth of stock. This doesn't happen overnight. And the reason why we have a lot of cars in stock, and the reason why we've a big business now, is because you keep the accumulated profits in the business. So it did start off really well though. That was the point I was trying to get at. And from then I kept doing the same things. I kept protecting my reputation. I kept trying to get good Google reviews, kept looking after people, kept doing the social media stuff, and it just compounds over time. So it now gets to a point where the business is quite big. It's I have some great staff here. I have a lot of great staff here, and it's gone to a point where got to a point that I'm really happy with and I'm really proud of. So that's been my journey. I haven't always been the it's not a case of I was always so clued in and focused on everything and did really well over the years. Like, I was a messer when I was younger. I loved boozing when I was younger as well. And I only find what I would call, and I know it sounds cheesy, my calling, I would say in my mid-20s, and probably my second year in car sales, when I started to make good money. And then I started actually copping on. I started actually focusing on doing well. And I started actually following through with the things that I was always telling my mother I'd do when I was 20 or 21 with absolutely nothing to back it up. So I would hope that has given you an insight into my background and my kind of story. And if you'd like me to cover any topics in a bit more detail, because this is a topic I could talk about for hours, please do leave a comment below, and thank you very much.